Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about Brandon Valenzuela. Now, if you guys did not know, he was left off of the 40-man roster, which makes him a guy that could potentially be taken in the Rule 5 draft. So today, we're going to go over the chances of him not being a Padre next year. And, is he going to get taken in this Rule 5 draft? There's also some ways that the Padres could kind of not make him safe, but they could trade him. They could move someone else that is on the 40-man and then promote him to the 40-man roster. But Chase, what do you think like Brandon Valenzuela's chances are of being taken in the Rule 5 draft if he is eligible when that time comes? And that's December 9th, if you guys are wondering.
I'd give it a solid 95%. There's not a lot of lefty hitting catchers that are really good with the bat. His defense might be a little behind his bat, but that just speaks volume to his bat. He hit a little over 300 in his minor league season. He was killing it with the bat. He made a name for himself this season. And he was part of the reason that we were okay, if they trade Campusano, we still have this guy in the system to make up for it. Not saying he's better than Campusano or he shares the same level of talent, but he is still a very solid minor leaguer. He has a really good bat, and he's really young. When you look at the catchers around the league, there are maybe, I can count on one hand, the amount of really, really good hitting catchers there are in the MLB. And that's not even when you get into including guys like Gary Sanchez, who are the most inconsistent hitters that can be, but can be good hitters. So when you have guys like this in the minor leagues that are really strong hitters, you kind of get worried because there's not any like that in the MLB. You're going to follow through. And if I'm a team and I look at my catching situation and the prospects that I have in my system, I'm going to be like, yeah, these guys are great, but most of them are probably really good defensively and not good with the bat. I'm going to take him, put him on the major league roster, see what he's got, see if he's ready. If not, you know what? He'll make an occasional spot start. He'll be the backup. And then now he's going to be mine for the rest of the year. If I'm any team in the MLB, that's what I'm doing because it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I think the only thing the Padres could do is trade him, but you still are like, well, you know what? If I don't acquire him here, I could get him possibly in the Rule 5 draft. So it might even diminish trade value just a little bit, So I think he's pretty much gone. I have no hopes that he doesn't get taken in the Rule 5 draft. And if teams end up not taking him, we consider ourselves very lucky.
Yeah, I pulled up some of his stats he played in A-ball and high A-ball, and he batted .299 with 7 home runs and 821 OPS, 69 RBIs, pretty good solid numbers. I mean, the main thing for me, I love Luis Campusano. I'm a huge Luis Campusano fan. I think he's going to be a stud. But with the way catchers have been panning out lately for the Padres, I kind of want to keep as many around in the system as we can to hopefully find some luck. Austin Hedges was horrible, to say the least. Defensively, fantastic. I will say, defensively, he was legit. Most of the time, I will say. Mejia was barely good at hitting and really bad at defense. Luis Campusano looked, I think, even though he didn't put up the numbers, I thought he looked the part. He was hitting the ball hard, just wasn't really finding the holes. We talked about it a lot earlier on in the season. I thought he was hitting the ball hard, just defensively in terms of calling pitches and all that. It was not very hopeful. But I mean, he was young and he's going to be able to learn. Now with Brandon Valenzuela, it's a guy that his name doesn't really get tossed around that much, but he could be a valuable asset to an organization. I mean, he doesn't have to be a starter, but being able to have depth at the position, considering, how often injuries happen to the catcher position, it's always good to have some valuable depth, someone that could hit, especially because in this league right now, the way it's going, you want hitters 1 through 9. You don't want guys that, are liabilities in your lineup, because right now you're seeing World Series teams have no liabilities in their lineup. And, for us, we had a couple. Sorry. But Austin Nola, I wouldn't say he's a liability. He gets on base. It's just that he doesn't hit for power. I think that's a liability in itself. Victor Caratini, he's clutch at times, but he hit like 220, a couple home runs, very slow, not the best defensive catcher. Like, he's really just here for Darvish. So, I mean, keeping Brandon Valenzuela around would be huge for the future. Because remember, like, I think this window for the Padres, I don't know how long it will be, but if it goes into like 2025, 2026, that's when we can see Valenzuela as like a first-year, second-year player. And it goes a long way to be able to have a good hitting catcher from the left side who can consistently put the ball in play. And I know he hasn't hit for much power, but can hit for more power.
I will say this in defense of Austin Nola, he was hurt a lot. You know, he had the fractured hand, and then at the end of the year, he was dealing with that sprained knee. So, you know, we really haven't seen a fully Austin Nola and what his power looks like, because even when we traded for him, I think he got hurt for a little bit in 2020. You know, we've never seen him fully healthy and what you can do with the bat fully healthy. Though he was probably one of our best hitters with running and scoring positions. It's just, you're right, the power was lacking. We saw a lot of doubles, and I think he hit one home run, maybe two. It was
good defensively.
Great defensively.
Yeah, pitch calling is fantastic. He's like their favorite guy.
Yeah, like all the pitchers talk about how great of a game he calls, and like other catchers too.
Yeah.
So I will say that if someone else isn't traded off of the 40-man roster to like promote him there, I would say there's almost like a 0% chance that he remains as a part of the Padres organization, because he'll either be traded, like you were talking about Chase, which he would have had some diminished trade value, or he will be taken in the Rule 5 draft. The Orioles, I don't know if you guys saw this. The Orioles have 0 catchers right now on their 40-man roster. So they are going to take Brandon Valenzuela if he is sitting there in the Rule 5 draft. They are in complete tank mode. It was reported, and I don't remember who did this. There was like a study done on like, okay, what teams are actually trying to go and win right now and truly trying to compete for the playoffs. 17. So barely over half of the league is truly trying to compete, truly trying to do that, and most of them are in some sort of a rebuild mode. If you're in a rebuild mode, going and getting Brandon Valenzuela is 100% worth it. And if you're the Orioles and you don't have a single catcher on your roster, then yeah, it's definitely worth it to take that guy. I do think that he could still very well be traded, even though his value is like somewhat diminished because like everyone knows that he's not protected. Because I think like I don't know who what the order is, but if you're a team that's like picking 10th to like 20th, you could think that he might go top 10 in that Rule 5 draft. So I think it's pretty likely that a team would go and make a move for him. Then they also don't have to play him right away, and they can develop him, and they would really like him. But it definitely seems like he doesn't have that much of a future in San Diego, which sucks because I like him a lot. I mean, I think that he has a ton of potential. Isaac, you're talking about it, and you said Austin Nola is not a liability, but like the power aspect last year was like you have to be hitting some type of home runs. You have to be, hitting for power at least somewhat. They don't really have a guy like that that's like a marquee hitter as a catcher besides Luis Campusano. And I would say also like the verdict is still out on Austin Nola, but I don't think Austin Nola is going to come up there and hit 25 plus home runs. I think what you're hoping from him is that if he plays 3/4 of the year, that he's going to hit around 15. Like that's what you want out of him. And that's solid. That's great. That's amazing because of how good he is defensively. And if Luis Campusano does pan out and he is that guy, then there you go. You have your 2 catchers of the future. But that's like banking a lot on just Luis Campusano. And so it does put him in kind of a tough spot where it's like, all right, you're going to put everything on this guy when Brandon Valenzuela, he played A-ball in 2018 and 2019, then didn't play in 2020. And then over his time in A and high A, hit 299 with an 821 OPS as a catcher. Like, he has a ton of potential. So I do kind of question it. Like, why would you not keep him? Me and Chase also talked about it in the past. Like, there were some guys that we would probably have leaned to not put on the roster over him. But yeah, anything else you guys want to add to this?
Yeah, so for the Orioles, you say that they don't have a guy on their 40-man roster. That is because in, I think it was 2020, Adley Rutschman was the number 1 overall pick in I think the 2020 draft, and he was like the clear-cut number 1 pick. He was I think the Oregon catcher. Man is absolutely crazy. But they could opt to play him at first. I've seen he's been playing first and catcher. So in their case scenario, you know what? You much rather have this guy at first than take Brandon Valenzuela and be like, you know what? Sure, he may not be major league ready yet, but now we have our first base for the future and potential catcher for the future. I mean, there's a lot of things a lot of teams could do with a lefty hitting catcher that can hit, just for either average or power, if not both. They're a commodity in the league. We saw people take Austin Hedges and be like, yeah, he's the greatest defensive catcher in the league. But when he can't hit his weight for batting average, you have 2 holes in the lineup if you're in an NL team. And you just can't have that. We saw Posey last year be one of the biggest assets to the Giants. 1, because he was great defensively, and 2, he was clutch with the bat and hit over 280. So when you have that one hole that is the catcher and you get someone that can hit for average and be good defensively, your team gets better because then you have no holes in your lineup. For the Padres, we had that hole in the lineup for a majority of the year in Caratini. Yeah, he had his clutch moments, but it really didn't help when, he would go up to the bat and strike out 3 times in a row, and then the pitcher comes up right after him, and you're just like, yep, you know what? There's 2 automatics, and now we're at the top of the lineup with 2 outs. Just doesn't work.
Yeah, and at times Frazier would lead off after that and ground out to the second baseman. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
But it definitely felt like last year that was one of the biggest issues. Not like they didn't have like the Padres were top heavy, but they would just come into games where it's like, oh, you have 4 guys that are like pretty confident they're going to go 0 for 4 tonight, or maybe they'll combine for 1 or 2 hits. Like you can't do that, especially when your whole like plate, like how you like your approach at the plate is be super, like just be ultra patient. You're ultra patient. You're just walking, and then Caratini and the pitcher and Frazier are the next 3 guys up. It's like, nice. You could have the bases loaded and you're probably not getting a run. Like that doesn't really help if everyone's just walking to sit on, but like to be on base still. So I think that's going to do it though for this one. Let us know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about the Padres potentially not really moving on, but losing Brandon Valenzuela by not keeping on the 40-man roster? I think it could be something that could be a big mistake. Hopefully he's not eligible when the Rule 5 draft comes around and they do make a trade and they move him or something, or they move someone else and then they promote him. But it is a little scary because I feel like he's going to be in another uniform come December 9th. So that's going to do it for us today, though. We also will go live after the Rule 5 draft or during the Rule 5 draft. So look out for that as well. We'll probably schedule that in advance, but that's going to do it for today's episode, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.